So guys, welcome to this week's Property Management Mastermind. I know you guys have been putting a lot of energy and effort and work in over the last chunk of time. What I'd like to start with is to run through with you the 5 E's that I believe will make the biggest difference to the quality of communication that we have on an ongoing basis. Then we'll have a quick chat about, well, you know, how well are you applying these? So if you just write down 5 E's as a heading, and these are 5 E's that you can bring into every communication. And by the way, I would recommend you not only play around with these or play around with them, utilize these from a business point of view, but also they're incredibly valuable from a personal point of view. So the number 1 E, surprise, surprise, is energy. So you can just write that one down. And the key with this is people, more than anything else, people buy your energy. Now, a super simple example of this, you're walking along a street and you look at a restaurant, you think about going to a restaurant, and yes, we'll be able to go back to restaurants soon. Look at a restaurant and you say, wow, there's a lot of people in there. It's really, really busy. This could change, by the way, with whole COVID-19. But you look at that and you go like, oh, if it's a busy restaurant, it must be good. So you get this really cool concept around social proof coming in that we can actually honor and make happen. So number 1 thing is energy. Now, the interesting thing is all of these are within your control. So I can actually upgrade my energy. I can put energy and effort in. I can make that happen. The second E is empathy. And empathy is the ability to step into the other person's shoes. Let me actually see where you're coming from. Let me actually understand where you're at. It's the ability to ask questions, pause, listen, and really understand where someone is coming from. So people love buying your energy. This number 1 thing they buy. The second thing is that they love is that you have the ability to understand their needs. Oh, this person actually really understood what I'm looking for. Oh, why did you choose them? Or what was it that made them so great? They actually tuned in and listened to me. The third one then is your expertise. Now, your expertise is about, and look, I think they spelt the word confidence incorrectly. They should have spelt confidence with a K because knowledge drives confidence. So the more knowledgeable that we are, expertise-wise, the easier it is to deliver on that. So one of the key things is having the expertise and then sharing the expertise. And one of the concepts that I think you've heard from me before is my belief is if you've had 2 conversations with the landlords or 2 conversations with tenants, you want to pop that up on social media and say, I've just had a couple of conversations with owners and this is what they've been asking. Or I've had a couple of conversations with tenants and here's here's the number 1 thing that the tenants are asking at the moment. Get it out there from a social media, build your expertise. So we've got our energy, we've got our empathy, we've got our expertise. The next one is enthusiasm. Now, a lot of people say, Michael, isn't enthusiasm and energy the same thing? Well, energy is coming from you. Enthusiasm is in your conversation, it's in your tonality, it's in what you actually say. And can you be enthusiastic to help someone solve a problem? The answer is yes. Or can you be unenthusiastic? Oh, really? Okay, yeah, As opposed to, guys, we know that we're paid to deal with problems within property management. So how do we actually bring it in a super effective way? And the final E in the process is effort. And we are rewarded for effort. We're rewarded for the effort that we put in. And, you know, at certain points in time, we know we're going to have to do some heavy lifting to get across something, to move something further down the track. And if you actually apply those 5 E's, and by the way, given that a lot of the time we're working from a desk or working, maybe some of us are still working remotely, is to come in and say, okay, how am I going on these? How's my energy? How's my empathy with this particular client or in this conversation? What's my expertise like that I'm sharing? How is my enthusiasm going and how much effort am I putting in? If you, at the end of each day, were able to give yourself a personal rating on those out of 10, how did I perform? The beautiful thing about all those, they are totally within your control. There's something that you can do, you can apply, you can put them into the mix. So I'd like to invite you to have a look at this. Maybe it's worthwhile for the team leaders to be able to have that up on the wall somewhere and just do a check-in once a week and say, hey guys, how are we going around these particular points? Are we building some great momentum around our energy from that point of view? So awesome. That was a little quickie up front. The good news is Katharine has made it to today's mastermind. Katharine, how are you?
I'm good. I'm so sorry. Here we are about to talk about technology, and I was having the same issue this morning. So hi, everyone.
Hey, great having you here. And for those of you that don't know, Katharine is an amazing leader within the McConnell-Bourne team and heading up the property management team. And Katharine, you've had a long association with the whole property management business, both from a consulting point of view and now working in the business to be able to deliver the absolute great results. So awesome to have you here. What might be useful, guys, and I will be watching the chat as we go through, anything that we're going through with Katharine that you'd like to know more information about, just pop it in from a chat point of view. Remember, guys, what I'd like you to be tuning in for this is to say, what Katharine goes through, does it support our strategy? Does it enhance our strategy? Does it change our strategy? So just have a listening into this and start to notice also not only what the strategy is, but also what's the quality of thinking behind that. So starting to see how we can create a shift in there. Remember, guys, and I've shared this with you up front very early on in this whole process, is a great mindset plus the right strategy will achieve the best outcome. So really neat for us to tune in and listen to this. Katharine, it might be neat to start, just talk a little bit about the how you guys are structured at McConnell-Bourne, what you're up to. You've recently integrated a rent roll into the business. So just talk a little bit about that as a framework up front, if that's okay.
Yeah, sure. So I've got copious amounts of notes for this morning. So traditionally, McConnell-Bourne was always a portfolio-based business. And then come December of last year, we purchased an acquisition. So we plugged in about 280 properties from another office, and we took on board their team. So from that perspective, we've now gone into what I call a buddy system. So we have a pod, which is a hybrid model. So they have a team leader. We've got 2 PMs running that, and there's a component of leasing, being a specialist in that sort of section of the lower North Shore of our marketplace. And then what I've done, or we have done, I should say, is we then have buddied up our existing property investment managers with another person or colleague to have that, I suppose, to have some reassurance, but also to, like I said, it's a buddy system. So if they're struggling with something, I'm not available, it gives them someone else to go to. And what I'm always trying to do within our business is creating those career pathways. So therefore, going into, if someone's in an investment management role, with the onset of wanting to step up and go into a leadership role, sometimes leadership doesn't come naturally to those. So we then try and upskill them continually and layer it up versus putting them into a different role and they get completely overwhelmed. So that's essentially how my investment managers are modelled, so to speak. We then have our leasing specialist, and at the moment we're currently in strategy planning. So that then looks for us to then have some BDs coming on board in terms of business development.
Yeah, fantastic, great. So Katharine, in terms of lessons in bringing this across, and we've got both leaders and also property managers here, so it's interesting from 2 points of view. When you acquire a business, you've got 2 different cultures coming together. That's an interesting sort of cultural sort of fit and dynamic. Have you got any sort of do's and don'ts around that you'd like to share?
We settled about 2 weeks prior to Christmas. So that is probably my what not to do if Matthew's on here. Never again, Mr. Bourne. It was pretty interesting. Although in essence, as though the silver lining was there's never a good time to plug in another business. So the reality of put in the legwork. So I suppose an acquisition model around that is we were geared to have all of our ticks, our boxes ticked prior to that acquisition coming on board. But then the hard work started once we settled. So from that perspective, I think I've always had a very strong mindset, especially having a brokering background. And I still am very mindful of not having a them and us mentality. So really trying to blend two cultures together. And we're fortunate that we've got amazing team members that were with the acquired rent roll. So they're home now. They're part of MB and the family, and it's been a good integration.
Yeah, fantastic. So let's shift to what is it that you have done or even would do differently in the last couple of months. So there's some key learnings in there that we can take forward as well. But any sort of things that you did in the last couple of months that allowed to move forward. By the way, guys, I want most of these sessions now to be focused on looking out the windscreen rather than the rear vision mirror. So, what are we doing in the future? So, it's one of those wonderful metaphors. The windscreen is sort of this big and the rear vision mirror is sort of that big. So make sure that we're looking out the windscreen and not continually looking behind us. But in a session like this, it's good to go, what can we reflect on from the past that we can potentially bring forward to allow us to move some things forward?
Yeah, I think COVID in one essence, once we all got over the initial 14 days of madness with rambling for process and procedures, it was a little bit funky, right? But we all got to have some learnings coming through it. So I suppose in essence, what helped us get through, and let's call it COVID, it is what it is. For us, I think our data integrity was absolutely critical in terms of enabling our team members to work autonomously, remotely from any location. And obviously through COVID, especially in the initial stages, it was working remotely from home. But particularly, you don't realise, we always have a process in play of, guys, it's so important. You've got all your files scanned in, you've got all of your leases in, you've got your agreements in. We could ramble on the 5 key things that a file needs. But the fact that we had also done a due diligence on our own rent roll, and it was just timing that we had completed it 3 months prior, it actually enabled us, other than keys, which I don't have a moment for yet, it enabled us to work anywhere from any location with no disruption. So I think the biggest learning for us, it was critical for my team to actually realise that the dragon that sometimes comes out of, guys, we've got to get this right. The trials and tribulations of the award that we got at the end of it was just amazing. Technology for us as well, we definitely utilised COVID to, I won't say change, but I'll use the word evolve. And to really use, so rather than maybe 65% of our existing system, to really maximise almost full throttle of 100%. And that's been great. It's definitely a landscape that's constantly changing. To put it into context as well, we're currently running Rest and File Smart, but we're also integrating and implementing our property at the moment. So we didn't pause that. We've continued to go through that. Again, there's never a good time to change into a different software. So we're all about evolution at the moment and moving on. I think for us in terms of the last tech point, and then I'm going to go to 2 key points in terms of face-to-face functionality, is Google Sheets. I think I mentioned it not so long ago in one of our, and hence I'm not very tech savvy, but I've had to, take my hat off and go, Katharine, you can't be a dinosaur forever. You've really got to move forward with the team. We'll never go back to a whiteboard. Now I sit in the office and I think, what am I going to do with this massive space? So we're going to use it as an inspirational piece and have some creativity. It'll still obviously have some other announcements on it, but the Google Sheets for us has absolutely enabled us to know a synopsis of our business at any one point of time, and all the leaders have access to that as well, which I think is really critical. We've also done our deferral programs. Not that we've been a little bit fortunate with deferrals in terms of COVID, but we've set that up. And now we also have a holistic approach to how our team runs their numbers. So it's all done via Google Sheets. And look, I like a little bit of competition. I think that's good in terms of a team engagement process. So it's interesting. We've only been on that for a couple of weeks now. So confirm it in another 30 days where the team's going. But Google Sheets for us has been mind-blowing. Just simple things, right? Really little, simple, small wins that make a big impact to your business.
And look, one of the things that I love, and yes, since Billy Nolan talked about Monday.com, we're playing around with Monday.com in our business. And, it's sort of like that coordination process on steroids a little bit. We run on a massive amount of Google Sheets to be able to run events and all the logistical bits and pieces, from timings to who's speaking to all of that. And one of the things that I got to say I love is if we go back to the traditional Excel spreadsheet that was going boom, 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 boom around. Have you got the latest version? Who got the latest version? I made some changes to it. No, I didn't have those changes, as opposed to it being in one place and being able to see it in real time. Yeah. As simple as that is, it's quite transformational.
Absolutely. I think probably the other thing that a positive out of all of this, pandemic has been for us. I remember a year ago, and it was almost to the date that COVID actually came we all need to work from home to be safe. And I said to my team, we're going to start doing lease sign-ups on site. And they were like, no, we can't do that. How's that going to work? Anyway, COVID hit us, and we now do all of our lease sign-ups on site. That for us has fundamentally been absolute game changer for several different reasons. First and foremost, it sets the relationship with the property investment manager and that tenant and client. Secondly, no one else or very few people are actually taking the time to do it. But fundamentally for us, we also do a full walkthrough. So i.e., we show them where the fuse boxes are. We show them how to turn the air cons on, the fireplaces, or all of those high-end features. And what that inadvertently has actually also done is it's reduced the amount of calls that we get within that first 30 days of a new tenant moving in. So for us, that's upskilling our customer service. It's absolutely adding value to our clientele. And that's probably something that we're not, all of our changes, whether they've been remedial, by accident or strategic, we won't be going back. This is our way moving forward. So that really excites me to get some amazing testimonials from clients to say, nowhere have we ever leased a property and we've had them come on site. So that's been great for us. And care calls, I've mentioned it before. Again, it's those really simple wins. I think from property managers traditionally have always been quite fearful of connecting and reaching out to their clients if they don't have something that they need to report. Again, there's always a strategy around that care call. Right now for us, COVID has definitely been getting in front of our clients and being proactive to say, we've spoken with your tenant and right now they're okay, or if they're not, this is what we've suggested. That again was a real game changer for us. We had a lot of clients that were sitting at home getting worried and stewing, but hadn't yet connected with us. And I remember, I think it was Fiona Blaney who we had on not so long ago on the masterclass, and it was all about, we have to show the added value that, we're running 1,000 times harder at the moment for potentially less in terms of fees because of the way that rent's coming down. Those added values for us have just been fundamental. And we're now also starting to do them with our tenants. So whilst we're doing our on-site lease sign-ups, we're doing a day 3 phone call. We used to do that in an email. So we still now do it in an email, but we're getting in front of them first by a phone call just to touch base. How did the move go? And that way, again, it's just a nice little subtle reminder that also too their ingoing condition report isn't far off from being due. So again, just setting those expectations.
And Katharine, one of the things, and this happens both in the property management business and also in the sales business, is the reason why we don't want to do that call after the move in is because they might turn around and say, this is a problem or that's a problem. It's going to come up anyway. So it's better that we know ahead of time rather than we don't know. So it's not the bury the hand in the sand strategy. It's actually, well, let me actually connect. The other thing that's interesting that you're talking about here is the care calls and the value calls. So they come from two essence, and I just think, guys, as a fundamental strategy, as a team on a weekly basis, you should be saying, what are the conversations we can have at the moment with our landlords and our tenants that's actually delivering value. And it might be different for different clients, but get into that mode of, I'm about to call someone. Yes, I might start with a care call, but I might want to have some value on there. Or if I know this person's totally great, they're all sorted, well, let's actually shift it and say, how do I create a value call here? And what would be built into that? What I've also found, Katharine, with this, when you get clear on it, so it's a value call, the dialogue tends to flow because you know what you're going to cover on the call, as opposed to a lot of the time the leaders turn around to property managers and say, make your care calls, make your good news calls. And I was like, okay. And I know a lot of you heard me talk about it, confused mind stalls. So if I'm not confident around something, it'll look like I'm being lazy or procrastinating. I just need confidence and clarity as to what am I going to actually share and do.
Yeah.
So very interesting.
I think also too, for us, those care calls have been fundamental in how we add value moving forward. So what I mean by that is, not only has COVID allowed us to sort of take the Teflon wall down and just be really vulnerable, because let's be real, everyone's been impacted. What it's also allowed us to really understand, and it just happened organically, was understanding the client's want and understanding the client's needs. And when you know those two pivot points, I'll call them, our care calls moving forward, yes, whilst they're going to still be empathetic and have a sense of, we're just here to, as a care call, they're also going to be strategic for us moving forward. So organically, we're able to almost rustle down the trees and get a guidance of who's looking at selling, who's needing to sell, we've got a handful of clients at the moment that are going through some really messy divorces. So how can we support them? What does that look like? What does the communication piece need to be? And as I said, that's just literally happened organically based off doing these care calls.
Yeah. Could you just talk a little bit more about how are you identifying the wants and the needs from that point of view?
Yeah, sure. Good question. The team have collaboratively different approaches because they're all different human beings. I think essentially, as I said, when it comes down to being an organic medium, some of the key questions, for example, would be, how would you prefer us to communicate with you? So there are some people, for example, that just want a 2 bullet point email versus a 30-minute phone call. There are other people that have got, a coupled relationship, but only one of them has all the knowledge and not the other one. So going through their needs and wants, it's almost about, at the moment, the question for us is, how can we be of service to you moving forward? And that's it's a very vague question, but out of that, organically, you generally get, well, this is what we need, and this is what we want. So that's a nice way of putting it together without saying, hey, Michael, what do you want from me?
Yeah. And look, what I'm loving about this, Katharine, while you were actually coming on, I went through the 5 E's, and I think the second E is empathy, and that is stepping into the client's shoes, understanding where they're coming from, what do they want, what do they need, and then how can I help you get that? Because the more I can help our clients get what they want and need, the more valuable we become as a property investment manager. I got the investment in there. How good was that? Property investment manager from that point of view. I think the only other little point, guys, the tip I would put in there is, and I learned this from the sales point of view, working with sellers, that it's a great idea. How would you like me to communicate? I think the little pre-frame I'd put on that, and Katharine, this could be a little upgrade for you guys, is typically most of our clients like communication either this way or this way. Could you let me know what's going to work best for you? So you set a minimum, Because, some people say, I don't want to hear from you ever. It's like, that's not going to work for us. So, you want to set a minimum with this, and, what would ideally work for you? So it's a nice little way of bringing that into play. Had a question here from Tori too. She's wondering, in terms of who do you have meeting the lease sign-ups at the property? Is it the leasing consultant or is it the property investment manager? It's property investment manager, isn't it?
It is. Great question. It is. And look, if leasing need to do a lease sign-up for overflow, then absolutely. But fundamentally, the reason why we've made it go to the PMs is they're the ones that have got the ongoing account relationship. And I think that's where, we need to be sort of thinking in terms of strategy moving forward is, what can we do for that client? So yes, we set it up with the person that is going to be their single point of contact.
And look, we have rented a couple of properties in Sydney, and both of those lease sign-up processes have been less than ideal. And the place we're in Balmain, although we haven't been there for a couple of months, the place we have in Balmain, the light switches were weird, and I think I've mentioned this before. And all it needed was someone to say, by the way, you've got a French lighting system in here. So you've got two light switches, one for the certain power points, which allows you to have lamps that you don't have to go and turn off. It's like, it's such a cool feature. We didn't know about it. We thought the electrical system is dodgy in this house. What are we going to do? No, it's perfect. It's actually got these really cool spots you can put lamps. You don't have to actually go and turn the lamps on and off individually.
And on that note, Michael, I did a bit of digging because you know how much I love my stats over the last 12 months, and I looked at the new tenants that had moved in, and almost 70% of our repairs and maintenance came off the back end of a tenant just moving in. So that for me, I think also solidified why it's just so important to be doing these walkthroughs, and it ups your customer service 1000%.
And I think if you look at it, okay, there's an overhead here at the front end, but if you look at it from, once that overhead's in play, you look at it, it's actually going to improve the streamline it dramatically. The other thing that is totally valid, when I've met you, Katharine, face to face, I am more civil in my communication. I'm more humanistic in the way that I approach things. So it totally changes that dynamic versus, and back to your question, if I've got a leasing person signing up, I've got no relationship whatsoever. I've seen an email come through with your name on it. I'm probably going to be harder and tougher in my communication as a tenant to you, as opposed to if I've got a relationship and you've addressed 3 issues in the first month of my tenancy, I'm actually on a positive side with you. By the way, we know that 30% of tenants are also landlords. So if you're like, hang on, I've never heard of this experience happening with where I'm currently at. Can I bring my property over to you as well? Yeah.
Absolutely. So I think also too, having it going back to that PM, it also eliminates any confusion. So for example, we've got a couple of applicants at the moment that are still emailing leasing. So it just takes out that grey area and have a clean handover.
Yeah, fantastic. Great. So if you were to summarise then the take forwards, I know you've got some notes there. So we've been a bit courtesy of my interview style, we've jumped around a little bit. Are there any key points that you wanted to cover off on, and we'll move into some breakouts?
I think and this sort of came more so. So what we've always done, but we're now doing it better, is having a key focus for the month of. I think anyone that is not yet doing care calls that wants to implement them, having that focus and just having a key sentence up on the board that's visual for your team is really important. I love the saying, especially at the moment, it's just so relevant. What doesn't challenge you won't change you. And I've done a lot of training with our team, even through COVID. So we've still run our meetings whilst we've done Zooms. I think collectively what we've learned from this is how important it is to have each other's backs in a team environment. And that's just come through and through in relationships, both internal connections and external. And I think for everyone that's on this call, whether they're PMs, leaders, or anything in between, resilience, that word just rings so true to me at the moment. And I grabbed this off Jet Xavier. I was listening to a podcast the other day of his, and he was talking about the 6 domains of resilience. So it goes through collaboration, vision, composure, reasoning, tenacity, and then collaboration at the end of it as well. And I saw that, and I think that's just, it relates to us in every way, shape or form. So I think the key word here is our teams have been doing an amazing job through this whole process. I think there's been some huge learnings. I think in terms of the resilience and evolving, we're now adding more value to our clients than we ever have done before, because before we just thought we were too busy to be doing it, where it's now allowed us to have no fear. And I think that's a blessing for our industry and for us as agents moving forward.
Yeah, fantastic. That's awesome. We might share that podcast with everyone on the PM Facebook group, so you guys can actually have a listen to that. It sounds brilliant. By the way, if you haven't or you feel like you need to, I would go back and do a review of Cynthia Morton's session that she did for us as PMs as well, because, you know, back to, and let me see how I go with this, courage, love, wisdom, release, and boundaries. I got it with the 5 fingers, the 5 puppets. You look at those kind of aspects, and having behind that, the team knowing that we've got your back, knowing that you've got support, is so critically important. Talk about what's your communication frequency as a team. So how have you set that up? And you know, I love the fact you've moved to a key focus for the month. And I know we're doing some planning work at the moment for moving from a 30-day plan to a 90-day plan. And I've been really big on having a 30-day plan during the whole health, safety, economic issues. But we're now shifting, I think, guys, probably a 30-day plan for the month of June. Perfect timing to do that. But then shift to more of a 90-day focus and 90-day plan, coming back to the 30 days. Could you just talk a little bit about what your team comms look like?
Yeah, so that has changed. So we traditionally have always done our Monday meeting, which is our beefy meeting. So we go through our numbers, our stats, the weekend that was. We talk about any challenges. We have a general mic, so open mic session, where if anyone's got a particular issue that they need to have a solution or they're stuck on, and we also do an element of training. So that meeting generally goes for an hour and a half. I don't believe in, if I don't have anything to talk about, then we cut it short, but it's a non-negotiable every Monday morning from 10:30 till 12. Through COVID, we're then doing a Wednesday Zoom and a Friday Zoom. I'll be honest, last week we sort of dropped one of them because we had teams everywhere, and leasing for us, I'm not sure about everybody else at the moment, we're just getting phenomenal inquiry. We've stopped seeing people coming through on hardship claims now. We're getting more, well, up the road we can go for $150 less. So we're having a lot of more of those radical candor types of conversations. So for us now, moving forward from next week, for the month of June, our focus is to still reignite as a team, Monday, Wednesday and Friday. So Wednesday is really a leasing whip, 15 minutes, high level. These are the apps that are approved. These are the deposits that have come in, and this is what the weekend looks like. And then Friday, we just do again a 15 to 20 minute regroup on the week that was. What's the win of the week? And I think it's really important to still celebrate those small wins.
Absolutely. Hey, Katharine, this has been awesome to go through and get a sense of how you're operating. Lots of quick wins in amongst this, guys, for you to take on board and kick into go mode. Guys, from a timing point of view, I think we'll skip doing the breakouts today and allow you guys to jump into it. But I would love you to do a team session based on this back in your office and say, okay, as a result of this, that simple format, start, stop, continue. What do we need to start doing, stop doing, continue doing? And guarantee that Katharine, no doubt you've actually shared some things that has been confirmation, guys, we're absolutely on the right track. You probably also shared some things, Katharine, that they thought, you guys on the line have thought, you know what, we ought to start doing that. Make this the time to start. And I'm big, guys, for testing something for a month. Let's do this for the next 30 days and see where it takes us to. If it works for us in our marketplace and within our team, keep doing it. If it doesn't, you can let it go. The biggest issue, and this is more of a leadership issue, but let you know this across the entire board. If you say for the rest of your time here at Real Estate Results, you will be doing this forever, it's a harder decision and it's harder to take on board. But if you turn around and say, let's test this for the next 30 days, I go, yeah, I can test it for 30 days. I can do it for 30 days. And if at the end of 30 days it's working well, let's keep doing it. If it's not working well, we can let it go. And it just gives it reduces the resistance to change and allows us to embrace things in a more complete and full and development kind of a way. Hey, Katharine, been awesome having you in the session. Can we give Katharine a virtual round of applause, please?
Thanks, guys.
Thank you so much.